love that intro. Well, hello everyone. We are in the middle of one of the largest wealth shifts in history, and women are at the center of it. Perspective on influence, leadership, and financial evolution is coming. Some people are building businesses, some are building wealth, and then there are those who help protect that neither can be guaranteed. Rochelle is here to talk about legacy. We're joined today by Rochelle Khanna, someone who steps into those conversations that most people avoid, helping families and leaders navigate emotional anxiety, complexities, communication breakdowns, and generational impact. Rochelle works with ultra high net worth families, not just on strategy, but on what sustains it. She helps with emotional governance, generational patterns, and the human dynamics that shape legacy. You can tell I adore her because this whole human interaction is going to be great to talk about. She's not here just to give us general, like foundation level advice. I'm tripping up on my words, but I'm really excited about this. So this is going to be a different kind of conversation, and it's one that I know that I need as a female in this wealth time. So Rochelle, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Nikki. Well, first of all, I am so privileged to have you, Nikki, in my life, because I feel like, and as we go along and we talk more about what I've been doing, you have been a part of this whole project. Maybe you didn't even know that. You've been a part of this project because I really feel like my life has changed because I met you. And it would be my hope for everyone listening today that that you can get something out of this that really shifts your perspective and uplifts you as much as possible.
I love it. Yeah. Every conversation that we have good chatter, good deep thoughts that we go into. And it's, I don't know, like we were saying earlier, it's not polarizing. We just continue to grow as we talk with each other. So let's dive in. As far as the great wealth transfer, what should people actually understand beyond this headline that we've put out there into the world?
Well, Nikki, I'm writing a book on the subject. So I have lots of things that I think people should know. And I'm not the only one writing it. I have over 20 contributors to this project. And the project is called From Echo to Athena, the Evolution of Women in the Great Wealth Transfer. So as you can see, I'm referencing Greek mythology there. So I think one of the first things that we want to convey with the project is that how you interact with money is deeply rooted in our cultural attitudes and behaviors and identities and all of these things that we are told to do and believe about money. And, I think there comes a point in a woman's life, every woman's life, and man as well, that they need to sort out what is the world is telling them to do versus what either their higher power is telling them to do or they themselves are deciding to do. So the real fundamental thing is, who are you in relation to your wealth?
Okay. Now that's going to be a deep conversation for us. So let's go into why are women, because we're not polarizing men or women, like we love the men, but why is it such a big deal right now? Why are all of these groups popping up that are talking about it for women?
Because when we talk about the great wealth transfer, some people have heard that term, some people have not. How the great wealth transfer has been defined and positioned primarily in the media, and even the people that coined the phrase, is based on male behaviors. So Bill Gates, if we think back to Bill Gates deciding to donate the bulk of his wealth, that is things like big philanthropy moves by males was what they were looking at when they were talking about and defining the great wealth transfer. Now, while that's happening, though, this other undercurrent, which is actually the big current, is that women are going to be the primary holders of wealth in the world by 2030. And this has never happened before. So the numbers keep rising. But today, I believe it's by 2030, women will yield power over around $34 trillion. And so we need to know how to make decisions about money. So that's one reason why all these groups are popping up. But I define the Great Wealth Transfer as the largest matriarchal movement in history. So we hear a lot about the patriarchy. If you're on social media, it's like down with the patriarchy. People are really fighting male dominant systems everywhere we look, in corporate, in our home life, things like the fair play movement. We can talk a little bit about that as well.
Mhm.
But trying to find balance between men and women in a patriarchy, I'm going to say is not going to happen.
Okay.
Rather than a matriarchy, that's where balance between men and women can happen. And matriarchy doesn't mean that women are in charge. Matriarchy actually means there's an equal and fair opportunity, and I can explain more about where that comes from later. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, like how that, because you brought up that women aren't necessarily in charge of a matriarchy, but the matriarch is feminine. How does that work?
Yeah. So if we think about female psychology versus male psychology, I'm just going to give some examples. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a great example of male psychology. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs is still taught as the ultimate pinnacle of human evolution, right? The top is self-actualization. So the self is the most important. That is masculine thinking. Feminine brains do not think that way. They do not lead that way. They do not organize that way. There is a book, one of our writers in the book, her name is Stacy Feiner. She did a collaborative writing called The Sixth Level. And Stacy talks about that in our book as well. So the sixth level explains that feminine psychology is actually one step above self-actualization. And it's this idea of leading through care. Oh, how radical. Right? What if we built companies that had care at the center, care for community, care for children, that it wasn't that we can still be profitable and not focus solely on the bottom line. Like that's just bonkers to do that. So the feminine brain knows that that's crazy, that that's literally insane. Yet women are currently being asked to function in these patriarchal systems. So then when they propose an idea that would support the collective and maybe slightly undermine the bottom line, it's rejected because that's not where our priorities lie in a patriarchal system. And
let me push back a little bit, because we have some guys that they preach the servant leadership, right? That's their style. What do you think about that? Do you believe that that's because they were coached in that way, or what else could be the answer?
Well, if they're actually doing it, and I can, if they're actually doing it, then they are leading from a matriarchal position. And that's men, of course, can get it. Nikki, you have introduced me to some lovely individuals over the past month that were men. And it's clear that they lead from a position of what Stacy Feiner would define as an ethic of care. So what women bring differently is an attitude of an ethic of care. And what the book describes is all of the various ways and places where women building wealth or coming into wealth through succession or through longevity. That this is, if they would behave this way with their money, then their money takes care of themselves and their communities and aligns with their values, and they feel good about it. And we know that women are more interested in values aligned investing than men. So that's another, not that men can't do that. Men can do that. Possibly it would behoove them to learn to do that. And that's where this idea of the matriarchal authority and
Mm-hmm.
narrative has been pushed out of our psyche,
Mm-hmm.
our collective psyche.
So then why do you believe we get to do it differently now than before?
Because if money is power, and we collectively as women, now this is the other thing that the patriarchal system does not do well, is it doesn't allow for women to work well together. I think any woman who's worked in corporate America or has worked in hierarchical systems
Mm-hmm.
knows how cutthroat and competitive it can be, and that often the women are the worst to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the systems that cause people to behave badly. It's not the individual. And I think we were talking about that earlier. Women have the opportunity now to say, I don't want to bank at Citi because they had this discriminatory lawsuit. Now they did. We can reference that, but I'm not disparaging Citi directly. It could be any company, right? I'm just using them as an example. So, I don't have to invest my money with this company because
Mm-hmm.
I'm conscious of making a decision. And I think there are some women who are on top of their game and they're building companies and they're very diligent about where their investments go.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other women who have been systemically shut out of financial decisions within their family. And it's an opportunity for them to start participating.
Mm-hmm. So in building a business, you've seen more women to do their activities build positive impact. They are doing social type of investments. Where their money goes actually aligns with where their heart is. Andy Wayne talks about this with his podcast. He says that's where you should be putting your money. If you believe in taking care of animals or the earth, or sustainability in other ways, then you would put your money in there instead of elsewhere. And then when you're doing your stocks, you have some say so when you meet with your advisor, right? Is that what you're talking about? Like they could go and wherever their investments go, it aligns with what their heart is.
Yes, absolutely. And women do that better,
Mm.
statistically.
Yeah. Okay, so then women as decision makers, not just the beneficiaries, we've realized that women can inherit an entire system of financial gain from parents or working or whatever the case may be. But as a decision maker, maybe they don't own a company, but as a decision maker deciding for these types of investments, what happens? Who can they go to be able to make those decisions? If you can't go to the men because they're going to tell you, no, you're dumb, or maybe dumb is wrong. Dumb is definitely wrong. That's not a good decision. Who could they go to be able to engage that they could learn how to spend their money better?
Yeah, Nikki. So the book actually talks a lot about that because women need trusted spaces in order to feel like they learn safely. I mean, I think most people familiar with this topic a little bit, they know that advisors now are having a hard time keeping their family clients. Let's say the patriarch dies, the female's not going to stay with that advisor and the kids are not going to stay with that advisor. So there's a reason for that. On some level, there's been no trust built with that individual. Why would I want to, you're condescending to me, or I don't understand you, or you've always left me out of the conversation anyway. So there are a whole host of reasons why people don't stay with their advisor. And advisors are trying to reckon with that. But this idea of trust, the book is full of women that you can trust. And this was actually the basis of the project. One of the backstories about why I wrote the book was because I have been working as an advisor for high net worth families in the New York City metro area, but in a silo. I worked minimally with other therapists and physicians. I worked in the families' homes. I was not linked into this whole network of advisors that I discovered after I left the city during COVID. I moved back to West Virginia and I said, I need a network. So I started to interview advisors on LinkedIn. And in doing that, I encountered the wild, wild west. Some people were super on their game, super caring and intentional about the clients that they served, and other people were fraudulent. So I thought, if I'm spending all this time interviewing people that I want to be aligned with in my new season, how in the world do families and women find advisors that are reliable? The book, I vetted them as best I could. I love and respect everyone who is in the book. One of the women who wrote the afterword for us, Julie Castro Abrams, if you're looking to invest, Julie, and you're a woman and you're looking to invest, you're an accredited investor, or you're looking into what that even means. Julie has a place where women safely learn how to invest with each other. And she has a venture fund that you can actually action upon. So it's not just, these are legitimate people who are out there investing in big things. So, yeah.
I take us back. We had a conversation a couple of months ago with Shama Button, and she's putting together the conferences twice a year, one in New York and the other in San Francisco. So that would be another resource that we could add for those that want to learn more.
Correct. She has a beautiful circle of women that she is hosting. She does smaller salons throughout the US, like she's kind of on tour. And then she has these bigger events for serious investors. And she is aligned with Janine Firpo, who is doing a campaign called the She Economy, which is a brilliantly positioned campaign. So there are trustworthy women and men out there, but it does help to have some vetting. And I try to do my best with this group of women.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to the book. I know it's been anticipated for a while, but in that, like, we're going to learn about investments. We're going to learn about raising up businesses. Like, wealth can be defined in different ways, right? It's not just having money in the bank or a savings account or stocks, but what it is that you're putting into the world and what you're gaining out of it. So from these different women, tell me, how do they define wealth?
I would say that, they would all have slightly different definitions, but I think the overarching theme from the book is that wealth is multifaceted, and there are other people who write about this. One of the second chapter in the book is actually about health as the foundation of your wealth. I don't think it's beyond anybody that longevity is the most important thing. Your health and well-being are where you should put your resources first if you're trying to build wealth. And Deborah Delaney has a beautiful company called Arc Vitae, where she helps women, especially women going through life transitions such as menopause, which and there's a whole movement of women out there helping each other to legitimize the cycles that women go through. This is another thing that's diminished in patriarchal systems. Women are not allowed to work on their natural rhythms. They're forced to work inside the rhythms of a man. So a man's hormonal cycle is a daily cycle. A women's is a 28-day cycle. So we're expected to do things at different points in our life that this is like not my time to be doing that. And we are forced to ignore that because there's no recognition. And so people like Deborah Delaney are helping to change the mindset around the different seasons and what's appropriate for women.
I just spoke with Jessica Preston this morning a little bit. She was telling me about a project that she's working on. I'm gonna connect you guys after this, because also working with women and hormones, being the best that we can as we seek out longevity. And I believe I've introduced you to Nick Larson, who has the Ageless Evolution Longevity Summit. But those are other moments in time that we can capture and learn from others that are finding their value in the wealth of their health, which is pretty serious at this point, right? We need to take care of ourselves, no matter if we're running a big business, if we're working as a corporate person, or taking care of our children in our home. There's a lot of value in taking care of yourself. So, yeah, I'll introduce you those. I'm thinking about it.
Awesome.
So I had another question for you. We're talking about leadership, identity, and the financial confidence. Financial literacy is something that I hold very dear, having all those years, running a fintech with underneath my husband. And when you're making your wealth personal, you're making it actionable. What internal shifts do women need to step into fully to have financial leadership over their life?
Well, I'm going to say these two words, and anyone who is anybody who's gone through the succession, estate planning, family governance stuff has heard the terms values and mission. And you're probably sick of it, because there's a lot of work out there around values and mission that doesn't, like, we can sit and do a values exercise together on paper, and that means nothing, absolutely nothing. So how do you actually line up your financial decisions is that you find someone who can work with you on a very deep level with around your values. And that usually leans toward touching on things that are painful for you, or things that have been upsetting, or things that were in your family that were sensitive. And those are always the things that our families want to stay away from. So the best way to align our values is to find out who we are. And the only way we find out who we are is if we dig through both the good and the bad. So it's a little bit deeper work than just saying, I value kindness, and that's what we're going to do. Yeah.
All right. So what would be some painful things that people wouldn't want to work through?
Yeah. So I wrote a previous book called Inherited Trauma and Family Wealth. And the painful things that people don't want to work through, first of all, money is a subject that, as a therapist of 25 years, people would talk about the most horrendous things that happened to them, abuse, accidents, things. But the thought of talking about money was always like the last thing. First of all, why would I want to talk about that? And second of all, I don't have any financial trauma. That's not like, that's like not even a thing. So I think first there's a recognition that there might be patterns in your family that you're denying. For example, let's say grandpa created the business. Let's say great-great-grandpa created the business. He lost everything in the Depression, and then the family started over. Your not so distant relatives may have severe poverty trauma. And even though you have wealth, your family's rebuilt itself, you have money again, the scars of, and the behaviors and the habits around money are still popping through in how you interact with money. So for a woman, that often looks like, oh, I'm okay spending $30,000 on a handbag, but I freeze when I invest my money somewhere, invest $30,000. Well, I'll have to ask my advisor, or my husband will have to tell me what to do. Now, that's not all women. I know that may sound a little stereotypical, but it's an example of, I feel free and confident to do with my money in some places, but in other places, am I illiterate? Am I actually illiterate? Can I not make a decision? And that's just, it's not true. Wherever women think that they can't learn how to do something, I took up day trading, Nikki. Never,
wow, I didn't know that.
in my life. So this is from this book. This is from the process of being in the book. It's like, you know what? Am I going to be okay saying that I'm a day trader? Like, can I get comfortable saying that I'm a day trader? Yeah, I think so. And there are probably some women and men listening to this now that think, I don't know if I can be that person. or not. Maybe you don't have to be a day trader, but I don't know if I can be that person who starts their own business or who learns that skill that I've always wanted to learn. Yeah.
So they're holding themselves back. It's they're having negative self-talk, which can be a problem for any person, male, female, founder, corporate, executive, investor. If you are telling yourself that you can't, then you won't. But if you are saying this is something that I would like to do, it would be a good investment in myself, and I could learn it, then it's a totally different ballgame. So it's a mindset barrier. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an identity shift. And when we start to rewrite our identity, we can do just about anything.
And then in having that competence, as you are learning day trading, you would just get better at it. And then it would be someone would come to you and say, well, how did you do that? And you would be able to share it with them because you've gone through the education. You didn't just jump in willy-nilly and start doing it. You're educating yourself on it. I love it. Wow, good job.
Right. That's gambling. And I think that's a good point, Nikki. A lot of people I think financial risks and understanding the subtlety of financial risk, that's something that is a skill. And sometimes we make mistakes, and I've made a lot of mistakes with money. But I think you have to have the confidence to keep realizing that money is an energy source, and that as long as I get back on the horse, I'm going to rhyme right there. As long as I get back on the horse, then it'll keep coming to me. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I like the idea of this audience hearing. You just keep growing. You keep learning. You have the growth mindset. So we'd like for people to understand that the heart is behind the servant leadership. And as a part of the great wealth transfer, you're thinking about those values. You're thinking about your health and investing in yourself. And you're also thinking about investing in your future mind, right? So that you continue to learn and continue to grow. Otherwise, if you have all this money and you don't know what to do with it, it's not very valuable, right? If you have all this going for you, but you're not investing the time into studying it and to see what you can do best with it, then it's not as good. So in our Christian culture, it's we're teaching our children that everything that you have, everything that you do, you're doing it to be able to honor God. And in that, you're loving people, you're loving God. And so I would say for our values, we would be investing in how can we do that well? What does that actually look like? So when you are doing this day trading, what kind of, you can be a little personal here, what kind of things do you find to invest your money into?
Yeah, absolutely. Things that are aligned with my values are very important. Yeah. So anything that is aligned with environmental well-being and healthcare innovation. So I'm actually going to a healthcare innovation workshop with Julie Abrams this afternoon, kind of talking about some of the things that they're investing in. And that's the thing, when you start to get detailed. So this is a good example. Some people, you can do day trading and not know anything about any of the stocks that you're investing in, besides looking at the patterns. You can strictly read the patterns, right? Or you can dig into the analysis of where you think the companies are going and where innovation is going. So when you start to get tapped into a network of people who are building things, you can start to actually see trends, and then it just becomes like a lifelong puzzle and learning that can be exciting and not something that is daunting. So I hope to learn something this evening at the healthcare innovation.
That's fun. We talk about learning. There's also that group Witty that I just introduced you to, and David Lighton. And that group is always learning. They're having courses on AI, courses on financial literacy, having courses. Gosh, what was over the weekend? It was more AI, like to be able to continue to grow our brains so that we know where to invest, which right now, actually, technology is a big deal. But how about other leaders? What do they need to understand so that as we're doing this innovation with AI, as we're having this new investment of cash, what reshapes the industries, the businesses that are at the top as they're thinking about the way they're going to spend their money?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought up AI. So the book does touch on AI. There's a section written by myself and a leader in narrative cyber attacks. which is so his company protects bigger organizations from destructive narratives that could destroy the company. So when we talk about AI, I like to think about discernment as the most valuable thing that you have. And discernment, again, this is a wisdom skill. Discernment is one of those, like, it's kind of an intangible. It's more of a feminine skill than building the AI is the masculine. Having discernment and wisdom about making sure that females are participants in building our technologies, making sure that, this whole movement to now regulate Instagram. Now we're looking at the impact of TikTok. This is a feminine behavior that should have been implemented at the very beginning, right before any damage occurred. So the feminine looks at prevention before it looks at having to solve acute problems, which we can do too, but discernment. So Nikki, I'd love to hear your thoughts about discernment and kind of helping you. Your kids are older than mine. So how are you teaching your kids discernment?
Well, so we have 4 boys, 1 girl. And when you're talking about discernment, like, I can tell the difference between the boys and our little girl even. And so we talk about what your choices are going to be. We this is really great because I stayed at home with the kids while Jason actually built the business in the beginning, and I was there to support him and bounce ideas around, and I was there to see what was happening with the kids, right? And that's another thing about the female versus the male. We had more moms that have stayed. More dads would go to the office, and even if the mom had a job, she would try to work from home or work the least amount of hours, but the kids were the priority. And I believe for us, that gives us discernment because we're exposed to them more. We're seeing them more. They're coming to us with their tears or with their joys. We have storytelling every time they go out and about into the world. And I'm like, okay, tell me what happened. And then as I'm listening to what it is that they've done or what it is they were thinking about, I can help them to shape what is their future decisions. So let's see if a good description. So my son, my second son, is just made the decision to go to Italy to study abroad next semester. And we had to look at where his activities of life were going and where he'd like to be. And so we discerned that, he's not so much that guy that's going to be in the fraternity forever. That's not going to be his lifestyle. He doesn't see that brotherhood is something that defines just who he is. But he does see our family as something that defines him. And so he wants to work with us as we build businesses. And we're talking about international businesses. He wants to, learn different languages because we travel to Italy. And he's like, that would be something that would feed me. So in discerning all the different decisions that he could do for the rest of his college career, we talked about, okay, well, what's best for you? And how are you going to be able to serve your family that is you're identifying with versus the brothers? And so he made the decision to go to Italy, to go to the study abroad instead of staying and do the fraternity for next year. So I don't know. That's how we do it. We just look at where they've been, what's on their heart, and then where we can see best because I had that exposure with.
So ongoing attention to the thing that's right in front of you and trying to make tapping into the most heart-driven decision you can from moment to moment. Yeah.
And that's our story is also like one day at a time and one moment is necessary. So when you said in the moment, that's we're looking at them. And then sometimes we just have to say, hey, right now, this is not a good time. Let's take a step back, have a moment, and then we'll come back and revisit this decision. So the moment by moment's a good one.
Yeah, moment by moment. And I the reason why I think, again, like, Nikki, I'm not thrilled with the overarching direction of where things are going. And what I mean by that is, in some of the conversations, excuse my ignorance, in some of the conversations I had last week with some of the people you introduced me to, I learned the term community as a service. I was unaware of the term community as a service. And on some level, That's fantastic, and that's what the world needs right now, and that's what the world is asking for. And on another level, it's very disturbing to me that we have to pay for community for everything. And I say that, of course, I love what you're doing. I want to participate in everything that you're doing. I think you're doing a fantastic job. But I do think Vivian from Your Rich BFF, you watch Vivian, she did a short, and it was about the commoditization of everything. And that there was a time, if we're old enough to remember, in the 90s, where your neighbor just watched your dog and you didn't have to go on Rover and pay somebody, and your aunt just took you to the airport and you didn't have to call an Uber. And there were these moments of connection that were real life that AI will never replace. And if we think about Chat GPT eating itself, or whatever people say the information does, right? Like the information just gets recycled and recycled and recycled, and then it just is going to produce garbage. Well, it's not going to do that if we have real experiences to relate things to. And so discernment is going to be a top commodity in the future, especially in wealthy families, which it already is a top commodity in wealthy homes, because they struggle with that anyway. High net worth families really have a challenge in parenting because of these decisions they have to navigate around entitlements.
We're not in the ultra high net worth category, but in having a comfortable life, I can see, like with my children, the entitlement, like I want to give them more than I had. And this is a part of my ancient past, because there was depression, and then there was not being frugal and waste of money, right? And then the next phase is that I've got two parents that had built businesses. They were entrepreneurs, and we just didn't talk about money. It was always a problem. It was a holdback, because sometimes we would have a big influx because dad would have big sales or mom would have big sales. And then there would be seasons where there's nothing. And so in here, I'm having children and we've done well, and I want to give them what I didn't have. And to watch that entitlement with the first two versus the second two, it's a challenge. So having that good discernment of, like, you need to have good financial literacy. You need to manage your money well, but here, I'll give you this because you didn't manage your money well. So.
Yeah, but if the foundation is there, discernment doesn't have to come at the cost of deprivation, but it does need to be this very present. I'm focused on you, and we're talking through the experience of having things, and there's boundaries. And so yeah, discernment, especially around technology, is a thing that women can lead these conversations, because they have the collective in mind. They're thinking about all five. And I mean, I would imagine that your husband is thinking about all five as well, but the system is not thinking about all five. It's not, the system we live in is not set up that way.
Sure. Right. Yeah. They'll get left out. Whoever is the strongest, they'll be the one that wins. There was the bronze and the brains, right? Whoever, that's where they'll be placed. Yeah. And as the matriarch in our family, I'm thinking about how I can set each one up for success. I can't pick a favorite, but from the past and in our family's history, they're like, oh, that one's really smart at this. We're going to put our investment into them. They're going to become a doctor, and that's going to be great for our family.
Yeah. And that was fitting for the time, that was survival. And there are a lot of things that families had to do that would look dysfunctional or unethical now, that were survival, that we can't judge them for.
Do you see in different cultures or different areas of the world that already females are leading?
Oh, well, so in the family office space, there are more female family office leaders compared to the United States. There's about 34% of women are principals of family offices in Europe. A lot of quite a few of the authors are from UK and Portugal and We have one from Cyprus as well. So here in the US, that's closer to 10%. There aren't as many family offices run by women. So that's, at the higher end, that's definitely true. What I can say is women are running things all day, every day. It's just like the definition of the great wealth transfer. It's not talked about. I mean, but in the past 100 years, there have been amazing accomplishments by matriarchs in families of all demographics. They're just not discussed. They're not highlighted. There's not stories written about them. There's no statues built about them. I think we're getting a little bit better with that now. My goodness, I was on, so I run the Ancestral Healing Center with Michael and Bernadette as well. And we were chatting yesterday. Michael took a trip to New Zealand to visit his wife's family. And they get there, and the wife is learning about her family. And one of the family members starts talking about great grandma so-and-so. And his wife's like, I've never heard a thing about this woman. I don't know anything about her. Well, do you know who she was? She was the woman who won the right to vote for women in New Zealand.
Wow.
And their family just failed to mention the fact that she was on a scroll that was written 180 years ago. I think New Zealand may even be the first country where there was a woman. You were allowed to vote in our modern times. So, wow. Nikki, this is a prime example of, are you kidding me? Women have been doing amazing stuff since the beginning of time. And that's what the book is about. So a little backstory, I became interested in the Greek myth when I was writing the first book. I remembered this story of Echo and Narcissus. And I was thinking about ancestral patterns, and I was thinking about Echo. And I was like, oh, this is a relatively dysfunctional story. Let me dive into it a little bit more here. So when I got to reading, I read, there are several versions of the story of Echo and Narcissus. For those of you that aren't familiar, Echo was covering for Zeus, who was a philanderer. And Hera punished, Zeus's wife punished Echo she was a beautiful singer, and she punished Echo by making her just echo whatever she heard around her. That's all she could say. She no longer had a voice. Now we can tear that story apart, and there's lots in there, right? So I started to think, what if Echo is actually a representation of women's ancestral past? All these women who were in a system that, she didn't have a choice. Zeus is the head god. What is she going to do? Argue with Zeus? She'll just be blown up or something. She's a nymph. So I've got to do what this man tells me to do. And when I do that, I'm going to be punished by another woman. And I'm also going to have my talents stripped from me, and I'm not going to be able to love the person that I want to love. And I'm going to have to go into a cave and wither away. And I thought, this story needs a rewrite because this is ridiculous. So I wanted to honor Echo and think about her in terms of, she was just doing the best that she could. If we make Echo human and actually say, well, this was her circumstance and she didn't really have many choices, and maybe we can do better for her. And I would imagine that you and everybody listening has a matriarch in their family that had one of those experiences in their lifetime.
Yeah. You talk about her being a beautiful singer. She brought that to everyone that she was around. And then because of this circumstance, she didn't get to do that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Beauty. You said it. She was putting beauty out in the world. And that's the book is in collaboration with Anne Priftis, who is the CEO of Off Piste. She owns several art galleries throughout the United States and Canada. And the cover was chosen, the artist, there's an artist, Isabel Van Giel, did the cover art. She is one of my favorite artists in the world. I was thrilled when Anne said we could get her to do the cover. So beauty is something that men often, not that they can't and not that they don't sometimes, but they only bring that when they are also comfortable in their feminine. Otherwise, they're ripping and tearing down everything that comes in their path.
The kill to eat mentality.
Yeah. And not, there's a place for that. Thank God that we, men were able to do that and kill things and protect and be that. But we can't have that all the time. Yeah.
Sure. Well, and that's where the discernment comes in, to know when to be able to do that, when it's necessary to do that. Yeah, that's a big transformation. And I guess the women that have taken it serious to mentor their male children in that, they have a softer spirit. They could potentially be servant leaders. They could have good discernment. That would be a whole course right there that we could offer, right? Is to be able to share, how do you teach young men for the next generation to have that, and that to be the legacy as their matriarch, for them to carry on to the next generation.
Yeah. Yeah, Nikki, I'm sure that you know how much young men are suffering right now, especially in the U.S. So anything that we can do, just, of course, mommies want strong, healthy, sane young men.
Right.
Yeah.
And to help them to be confident. It's a tough spot for them. A lot of them, there's the TikTok and the Instagram and the video game, those guys that are just stuck on it because they're trying to figure out what's next. If the women are now taking over, whatever these misconceptions are, there's a place for them to work together, in whatever their skill sets are and the experiences that they've had for the best success. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Both of us have great husbands that we want to walk alongside, and we want to raise these young men in our homes to be leaders, and to be co-leaders with their wives in the future.
Yeah.
Thanks for diving into that.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm like, what am I going to teach my boys today that would be different along this path? So when someone reads this book, like, this could be a male or a female that it decides to pick up this book and they want to read it with a beautiful cover that I've seen. Tell me, what do you want them to walk away with when they finished?
It's my greatest hope that they walk away transformed to be the best version of themselves, especially in relation to their money, because our money is at the root of who we are. How we interact with money is a root part of us. And we can't separate ourselves from that, because it's our power. It's literally our currency. So currency, the word itself, is the movement of energy, right? So hopefully anybody who's unclear about who they are in their money identity can feel a little bit more confident that they at least have somebody to call. Please call any of the women that are in the book, and men are open to connecting. And especially Julie at the end, because she's got her initiatives going on.
So then from here, what's one message as someone comes to watch this? Maybe they're live here or they watch us on replay. What is a message that you would like women and men to carry forward as this shift is going to continue, as we've got this wealth transfer happening now?
You can tell the world who you are. You don't have to let the world tell you who you are. Especially with regard to your money.
You have a voice.
Yes.
And while Echo have lost her voice, as a part of the initiatives that we're doing with our community, we want to lift up voices. So I'm so glad that you're here. It's so great to be able to lift you up and to be able to share what it is that you're doing. And when is that book supposed to come out?
September this year. Yeah.
So we'll keep tabs on that so we can make sure that we share it. Well, thank you, Rochelle, for coming today. This was excellent to be able to go and have a good conversation about the transfer of wealth and what it means, not to leave anyone out, not male or female, but to rather build everyone up and to tell them to choose to have discernment, to know that their voice can be heard. They can create opportunities for themselves, right? If they go and they continue learning, there's a great opportunity to be seen, to be heard, to be connected. So for those of you that are here today, I'm so glad that you came. Thanks for entertaining yourselves by coming and taking in this education. Thank you for being a part of what we're building here. Top Voices Unite is a place for founders, executives, emerging voices to come together. We want to build something that gives visibility to those that are creating impact, like Rochelle, like the women that are writing this book with her. And if you don't know, 5 a.m. today, our Market Me More website just went live. We are inviting you to come to check it out. We're inviting you to come into our community. We do have a level that is free so that you can learn about how to get speaking engagements, how to grow your financial literacy, how to become more confident in your voice, how to be able to build operations. We have top voices that have joined us in that regard so that we can be able to help you. And through the Top Voices Unite, we're creating a community that's brought hundreds of leaders to show up, share their insights, and open doors for one another. I'd love for you to come and be a part of that with us, and we would love to build with you. So thanks, Rochelle, for being here. Thanks for building with me. Thanks for being a part of this journey. Is there any last words that you'd like to give to our audience?
Just go check out Nikki's website. I'm excited to jump off of here and see it myself. So
Okay.
yeah, thank
you. And I have those introductions that I will make for you after we jump off here too.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank everyone for coming, and we'll see you next time with Ideas That Scale. Bye.